mother called her daughter in from an afternoon of playing outside with her friends, and she told her to go wash her hands and get all those germs off of her hands because it was time to eat. And the little girl turned to her mother in disgust and looked at her and complained, germs and Jesus, that's all I ever hear around this house, and I've never seen either one. I thought that might describe how we feel about a lot of spiritual things that we think we're supposed to learn or practice or know or have in us or whatever. Lots of talk and sometimes not a lot of revelation that we've seen for ourselves. And today we're going to talk about faith. And we might feel that way about faith, actually. We might, what is that? What does that mean? You know, even though I went to Unity and it's Christian-based, I didn't have a lot of respect for a lot of Christian ideas when I went there. And that's why I went there, because they do everything metaphysically, and so the old ideas aren't exactly the same, and yet it's still Christian. And faith was one of my issues. I didn't like faith, I didn't like joy, I didn't like Jesus, and so so I had a lot to learn while I was there. But faith is one of those things that we hear a lot about, and we often hear that we don't have enough of it, or we often think we don't have enough of it, or we often, wish I had enough faith for this, or I wish I had more faith, and it's this completely invisible thing. But the product of it is not invisible. So faith is a completely invisible thing, but we're going to talk today about how the product of faith is not invisible. My favorite definition, and I think the one that most appropriately fits the way most of us see faith, is from Hebrews, and I love this. I have to read it to you. It says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for." So that means yes to everything we hope for, and the conviction of things not seen, which means yes to everything we haven't seen. But really what it is like we can really believe in and be convicted about and have assurance about the things that we can't see in the world and that they're working and that they'll show up. It goes on to say, by faith we understand the worlds were prepared for the word. Now, this is exactly how we manifest. So I want you to think about this. This is how we manifest things in the world. The world was prepared for the word. The word is God, is creation. So that was God spoke creation into existence. Now, whether you believe this or not as being the actual true story, the idea of how this works is probably the best idea that we've ever had or we could ever come up with about how faith works. And so the world was prepared to have this work, to have spoken into creation work. And so the world was prepared for the Word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not visible. It goes on to say, without faith it is impossible to please God, for whoever would approach him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. Now, that's a lot of old thinking, but it's not really a bad theory. And that is the idea, because that is really the idea. We have to be able to believe in this thing that we can't see. And our reward is a certain way that we can live in the world, or a certain way that we manifest the world, when we're willing to live in that place where we have this assurance in the things that we can't see. It goes on in this same area in Hebrews to say that Abel and Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Joseph and Jacob and David and Samuel and lots of others, and of course Jesus, did what they did by faith. That what they accomplished in the world, they did by faith. And it even mentions, the parting of the Red Sea and people going through, that was all done by faith. God said do it, and they did. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about how God said do it and they did it. It wasn't always fun, nor did it always turn out to their best interest necessarily in the way it looked. But God said did it, and God said do it, and they did it. So, in some traditions, and probably most traditions, people would say that faith really is kind of the foundation of everything else that humankind does. So we have to have faith in things, or or everything else wouldn't work. Jesus talked about this when he said that there was a new condition of upliftment on the planet, a new condition of love or upliftment on the planet, and he called it the kingdom of heaven. And he said that this new condition had to have as its foundation Peter. Peter represents faith. And so this foundation of this new condition that's on earth for all of us to work in and have freedom in, the foundation of that is faith. That would make the development and the use of faith key to our spiritual realization. And the Bible attributes Jesus to having said, according to your faith, be it done to you. So according to however much of that belief in the unseen you can have and hold on to, then that's what will be happening in your life. So, does it sound sort of like the law of attraction? It's just a lot like the law of attraction. So the law of attraction is not some like brand new gig or some new thought up thing. It's just in different words than this. It's in a newer language than this. So faith would also be the key to our material world. Not just our spiritual world, but the key to our material world. Faith is a belief that is energized with an emotion. So we must first have a belief, and this is where we most often get screwed up. We must first have a belief. Now, our belief has to be what we really want, not what we want but don't think we can have, because that's part of the belief. So when you hear about when the law of attraction, or anybody that talks about manifestation talks about how put it out there and then don't think about it anymore. Well, the only reason they don't want you to think about it anymore is because you're going to mess it up every time you think about it, because you're going to mess it up with the ideas of I don't have it yet and probably it's never going to happen. Because faith works with any emotional belief. I mean, it is the emotion behind any belief, even a negative belief. So it doesn't really matter what it is that we put out there. If we put our faith in it, then that's where we're heading. So this first we have to have a belief, because faith will follow the belief. And I have to give you this really interesting piece of this that makes it really, really tricky for us. When I look out in the world and I see Becky sitting there, okay? Less than 50% of the information that comes through my eyes and goes from the physical objects that I see and goes to my brain is what I see. The other 50+% is what I expect to see. So, so just think about that. So Becky may or may not be sitting there. It's probably 4951, somewhere around in there. But that's it. So here we are. So our brains work this way. We see the world. It comes in. 50% of it is based on what we see. And the other 50%, when it gets in here and starts working, is based on what we expected to see. That's why when people see things together in an event, they all see something different. It's because you all have a different expectation in here about what it is that you think you're seeing. It may not be what you're seeing at all. I remember having spending the night with someone when I was a kid, and we heard noises, and we went outside, and we saw this thing on the ground, and we were pretty sure it was a snake, and we screamed, and we ran back in the house, and then we went out the next day, it was a stick. Now, that's the kind of thing. Our belief said, that's scary, run. And our eyes, had they been totally on their own, probably could have said, it's a stick. Hey, stupid, it's a stick. But this is more powerful. The expect part is far more powerful than the what I actually see part. So that makes that what we expect really a really powerful thing that's going on in our lives every single minute. So believing in how we see in believing in a world that we want to believe in is probably the most powerful thing that we can actually do, because the belief has to come first. First we have, of course, an idea. The idea becomes a belief, and then the belief is fueled, and then in faith is the component. And a lot of times you might hear people say that, belief and faith are kind of, might be in the same realm, but it's really not true. And I want to talk to you about why it's not true. Not yet, but belief resides in the left side of the brain. It's analytical. It's based on tangible information. It's based on knowledge and experience. It's the yang of the yin and yang. It's the male aspect. And faith is the yin aspect or the female aspect. It lives in the right brain. And it's based on intuition and emotion and inner knowing. So right brain, casual, free, intuitive, creative, imaginative, emotional, adventurous, big picture, holistic. Left brain, logical, rational, facts, linear, cautious, sequential, details, analytical. Get the difference. So put up the one that's got the actual two hemispheres. So this is really it. This is our left brain function. That's our right brain function. This is belief. This is faith. Faith comes from the right side of the brain. It can't come from the left side of the brain. The left side of the brain isn't capable of having faith. The left side of the brain is only capable of analyzing and seeing what it thinks. It's based on whatever. This is the 49%. This is more powerful, actually by about 1,000 times more powerful than this side of the brain. This makes everything happen that we think about over here, or not happen. But it's really still based on what we've thought about. So even when things don't happen, it's because we've had that mixed belief. We've had that idea of, I can, but I can't. Somewhere hidden in there, the I can. That's why affirmations really are not all that powerful a good deal of the time. Because you look at it, you put it up, and you read it, and in that second, you're buying it. And then the next second, you walk away, and you know you're not buying it. Well, then all of this power over here does both things. It does the affirmation, and it does the not buying it part, and then you're just floating around and nothing ever changes. Faith is the activation piece of all of this. So do the one that's got the peace and love and all that crazy stuff. So this is our right brain. I love this. I just had to put this up. But this is the right brain kind of idea. This is what goes on over there in the right brain. Peace and love and freedom and all the things that we want and creativity and all of that. This is happening. This is the faith side of the brain. The reason this is the faith side of the brain is you'll notice that there's absolutely no negativity over here. There's nothing to analyze. So there's no counterpoint. There's no is this the best idea or this the best idea? That's all taken care of over here on the left side of the brain. This is all just yeah. Yahoo! This is the life I dream of. This is the life we would be living if we had no left brain, except for we wouldn't be able to function. But has anyone ever read the book by Jill Bolte? I think her name is. Yeah, Bolte Taylor. And she talks about how she spent a lot of time over here when she had her stroke because her left brain was damaged. And she started to realize how amazing it was over here and that we have this access all the time, except for that the left brain interferes when we don't come over here. Just show the other one too because it's cute.
This is so good.
So yeah. There's our little left brain cubicles, and here we are all creative and wonderful over here in the world. Now, we know a lot of people who operate over here most of the time, don't we? And we know a lot of people who operate over here most of the time. Well, the real key is to operate from both of those places because belief has to come from over here. It has to. Belief doesn't exist over here. Faith exists over here. Passion, desire exists over here. Belief exists over here. So if we want to take the energy of this and we want to turn it into something, we have to start over here with what we want to turn it into. So, the left brain decides what we think about. And so that's where we get clear. That's the conscious brain. The subconscious brain is over here. And it doesn't care what we think about. It just cares what it's going to do with what we are thinking about. What it's going to create with what we've thought of. And I want to get this really clear, because people take faith as a real spiritual principle. God doesn't care if you're over here all the time or over there all the time, or if you have crappy ideas over here and all this energy is going to them. That we're just created perfectly to do this the way we want to do it. And so there's no sort of, and there's no lack over here. This is a brain thing. You can't lack faith unless you lack brain. So I know none of you want to hear that. So we all have plenty of brains, and we all have plenty of faith. Now, we may not be very good at exercising this part of the brain. And the reason we may not be is because a good deal of our of being in school and being in the educational system that we have in this country and stuff keeps us over there. And so we think if we're going to be really smart and the world's going to love us and blah, 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 we better be over there. We gotta know stuff, and we have, you know. And so we value what that side of the brain does far more than most of us value what this side of the brain does. But what we don't realize is that whatever this side of the brain does, it can't do it without this side. It can't make it happen. Darn it. So it is this cooperation. How many of you have ever done a meditation where you go from one side of the brain to the other? Yeah, and it's really amazing, because as soon as you go consciously from one side of the brain to the other, everything changes. In the way that what you see, the pictures you see, the things you're thinking about, the way you know the world works. Because we were designed perfectly to have it all. To have everything that we needed to do what God did when He created the world. Or at least in that theory, whatever creation is. I don't even like to say the word God, but divine. Whatever that is, whatever creation is, we were designed perfectly to be able to do that exact same thing, in that exact same way. Think it and feel it into manifestation with our faith, because we can't think it into manifestation. And it's one of the reasons that I really don't like a lot of the things that people teach us about how to make things happen, because they focus so much on the thinking part and so little on the next piece of that, which is the belief is formed, but then there's this other thing, and that's where you let it go. You let it go in the faith category, not in the thinking category. Not really, because you can't stop yourself from thinking. You can't. So if you want something really bad, you cannot stop yourself from once in a while doubting that you'll ever have it. You just, you can try. You can say all those things that make you think that you're conditioning your brain to stay over here, but you're not necessarily really conditioning your brain to stay over here.
There's a darkness upon me that's flooded in light. In the fine print they tell me what's wrong and what's right. And it comes in black and it comes in white, and I'm frightened by those who don't see it. When nothing is owed, deserved, or expected, your life doesn't change by the man that's elected, or woman. If you're loved by yourself, then you're never rejected. Decide what to be, go be it. There was a dream. One day I could see it. Like a bird in a cage, I broke in and demanded that somebody free it. And there was a kid with a head full of doubt. So I'll scream till I die, or the last of those bad thoughts are finally out. There's a darkness upon you that's flooded in light. wrong and what's right. There's a darkness upon me that's flooded in light, and I'm frightened by those